If there is only one thing you need to learn and understand about Magna Carta 1215, it's this. Magna Carta 1215 is the sole peaceful means known to humankind by which the rights of the weakest, most innocent citizens can prevail over a massive, potentially corrupt and oppressive state power. This is the voice of freedom, Magna Carta 1215 Learning Centre. Welcome to your next lesson with hosts Fitzroy and Carl.
And evening, folks. I guess I can turn my camera on very briefly. I'll hide myself down here. Nice to have you along for your Monday night. A bit quiet over the weekend, and I've travelled a few kilometres, currently in New South Wales. Yes, there are some interesting things happening down this part of the woods. I'm here to pick up a bit of equipment this week, and there is something very special happening in Singleton on Friday night. The first My Place social meetup is happening Friday night at Chris and Steve's My Place. Looking forward to getting along to it. In fact, I'm going to go to it Friday night. Unless something really bad, dramatic happens in Brisbane and I've got to get back earlier, I'll be hanging around until Friday to go to that one at the Singleton My Place, the first social event for them. And it's going to be very exciting. Cherie and co are very excited about it. So currently down in that sort of area, and I'm going to hang around for a little while. Got some things to do in Newcastle and Sydney over the next couple of days. So looking forward to catching up with a few old friends around this part of the world. It'd be great. Speaking of old friends, welcome tonight, of course, the man who, well, knows everything when it comes to Magna Carta 1215, or maybe not everything, but what we don't know we make up as we go along. How are you, Fitz?
Good evening, Carl. Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be here. Yes, so
I should have told you.
I don't really know how to follow on from that comment, actually.
No, we don't make anything up. I should tell you that. We don't make anything up. I don't know where I was going with that. So, yeah, no, not useful at all. So how's your week been, my friend?
Yeah, always pretty intense and busy. Flies by. Same thing. Never sort of stops. Preparing for shows, dispensing information, gathering new knowledge, etc. It's just the same cycle.
Absolutely.
So, it keeps me always occupied.
Very good, very good. Well, what are we getting into tonight?
So we're going to do the second aspect of what we started on last night to explain how codified law is the way that we've been controlled, and also showing how all those people who believe themselves to be freedom fighters are actually working against the very principles that they say they're fighting for without realizing it. So we're just going to show what's at stake tonight, what's really precious that can't be negotiated with. And if people can't understand that, then it's a real surprise as to why they even call themselves freedom fighters, because there's only one truth. You can't sort of rationalize your way around the truth. It's permanent. It's eternal. It cannot be changed. You either accept it or deny it. And so tonight's going to show the consequences on a real ground level to all the suffering that happens, and what's at the base element of all that if we don't get and rally behind the truth and actually make our actions line up with it. So that's pretty much, pretty much showing what you're condoning if you act out of alignment with the universal principles of morality, because truth and morality are virtually the same thing. They're just our understanding of truth. And if we don't actually have a clear understanding of what morality is, then how can we defend it? So tonight's about trying to show people actually what morality actually is and the consequences if we don't understand it. And people are living those consequences right now, and they've been living it for centuries. So it's up to every single one of us to use our power to rally around the truth and stand up and defend the principles of morality.
All right. We're kicking things off tonight with a video. Do you want to give us an intro to it?
Yeah, so this is from John Locke. So John Locke is someone I've been working with really closely, and he's been putting out videos explaining Magna Carta and law and etc. And this one, he just really grabs it really succinctly. So it's just a real good setup for understanding, especially if you're new to this. If you're new, I would obviously recommend that you start again from the beginning and catch up, because you won't understand it if you jump into it at this level. Yet, even if you are new, this hopefully would be, street level language for understanding the power of Magna Carta, and if you don't use it. what you're actually granting authority to.
All right, let's get into it.
To Article 61 and the simple principles of common law, which are that authority claimed must be established before we engage with it. The depth and duration of the deception practiced by those operating the legalese or statutory codification of law is truly staggering to most people. For instance, in the case of Australia, which was first colonised by Britain in 1788, the claim was made that this was a land classifiable under the Latin phrase terra nullius, meaning effectively unoccupied by anything or group that could be accorded recognition as a civilization. Of course, those living here at the time had their own laws and customs, accorded recognition and legitimacy by each group or tribe. But these were not written down, so the colonizers dismissed them as of no efficacy. Documents have now been brought to light which indicate, at least as early as 1838, that plans were afoot among those elites we already mentioned to maintain Australia as a colony in perpetuity, disguising the fact by encouraging or allowing the eventual provision of a so-called constitution, ostensibly granting some form of independence, but in reality subjecting the inhabitants to a dictatorship of Parliament in much the same manner as had been attempted and virtually accomplished in Britain with the infamous Bill of Rights of 1688-89. It's respectfully suggested here that to engage with any system capable of such Machiavellian, even satanic malevolence, is to dance on a precipice with woeful naivety. It must surely be called out at every opportunity and denied every instance of assertion of its false authority. And Article 61 is our Arthurian sword for this battle.
Wow, well spoken.
So yeah, if people are really interested, like John is very, very articulate. He puts a lot of time and energy into really constructing how to explain things so they're really easy to follow. So I highly recommend, if you're interested, you'd go to YouTube and look for Locked On Article 61. That's what you type up, and you'll be able to find. He's got about 35 he's done so far. So it talks about the false nature by which this colony was set up. The whole time it was a prison colony. It never has been anything other than that. And we've just been fooled into believing we had freedoms, but they always set it up to be a dictatorship. So everyone who still believes they can get some kind of remedy out of using the 1901, they can go to the High Court or the Supreme Court or anything like that. Right, I'd love you to disprove anything that's been said here. So someone earlier, I saw their comment saying that the truth is my opinion, like I'm just spouting my opinion. Well, if you're really going to make those comments, you need to actually come and show which part of what I'm presenting here is untrue and then provide the evidence. Otherwise, it's your opinion. Alrighty. So what we're doing is we're providing evidence here. And we've done so for the last, 20 something shows. So if you're just new to this and just saying it's my opinion, without actually going and doing the work up until this point, then you're actually just calling yourself out, my friend. So just be careful what you say, guys, because you will dig a hole for yourself. And if we're going to, if you're coming to this show, it's a learning center. It's not really here for you to espouse your opinions. So that's, unless you think learning means you just say what you believe and everyone else has to listen to you, if that's your way of understanding learning. So
in which case, you start your own show.
Yeah, so just be mindful of what you're commenting here, guys. If we're here to be unified, just think, is that an action that's in the service of unity, right? So if you don't believe anything's being said here, why are you here? I mean, that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Like, it just makes no sense. So just wanted to set that up before we go into actually what's the price paid if we if we don't actually understand morality. Now, I've actually done a quick survey and I've asked people if they can define it, and surprise, surprise, they actually can't. And so it really shows even people in the freedom fighter call themselves freedom fighters. They actually don't know what morality is. They can't define it. They've got some loose ideas, some sort of vague understanding, but as soon as you question them, they fall off sideways. And so that just shows you how easily we are led if we don't even know what we're fighting for. Because how can you defend that which you don't understand? And so what we're going to go into next is to show the price of what happens when you don't understand what morality is and what you're granting authority to. And if you use the 1901, or if you use UCC, or if you use equity law, if you use the legal system, all those things, they're all codified immorality. That's what codified law is. It's to hide someone's immorality and get others to believe that it's moral. That's how it works. So we're going to now show you what people's lives are like when they get dragged into the system of immorality. So this is what we're doing now.
Magna Carta 1215, Article 61, the protection and defence.
Carl, just quickly, can you put that up on the screen?
Oh, yes, I can. Give me a moment. Sorry, I had that set up before and then we changed scripts. Let me dig that out. That one there. There you go. You're seeing that?
I think it's about to pop up. Yes, correct.
Beautiful. Okay, so on the surface, the explanation below appears gender specific, yet the intention is to draw attention to the specific pathology that is equally present in both sexes. The pathology in focus is the one that places its private fear, anxiety above the consequences for demanding safety, that is the instigator for suffering in others, deliberately targeted, exploited, and then appropriated by the criminal syndicate that despises humanity for the purpose of initiating and perpetuating the cycle of self-inflicted suffering.
So just before you go on, Carl, I just wanted to just qualify that. So what this is about, it's going to be easily for those who aren't paying attention, they're going to think it's some kind of attack on women, but it actually isn't. It's just a lack of data. So if you really want to understand what's here, it's actually a particular pathology that is made use of. And it's that pathology that's been severely traumatized as a child. It's gone through neglect and different versions of violence. And because its parent itself has been traumatized and they've never been able to heal from that. And so what they do, it's a cycle, they pass it into their child. And so this is that perpetual cycle that comes from living in a system that violates us. And if we don't understand that it's a system that's doing it, we're just going to keep thinking we can medicate each other. Right? And so just wanted to bring attention to when you see the words woman coming up, right? That's only because that's the only data there is that I've got access to. I'm more than happy to take data on any actions where there's males on the other side, because this is not gender specific. This happens to both, right? Whether you're male or female is irrelevant. You can be traumatized just as badly. And so it's just to really be clear that this data, that what we've got here is only based on data that I have access to, not because I'm having to go at anyone. So please, if you are a female and you're going to be sensitive to hearing some of these things, just bear in mind that it's not specific to females. It's just that's all the data I have on this matter. But I'm more than happy for people to email me and let me know about their private stories, and I'm more than happy to represent it. And so we can see the other side of when the male uses the system, to get what they want. Just thought I'd start that there.
Okay. The following is data collected from real accounts of how the criminal syndicate appropriates the father within the family unit. It is critical to note that there is a female perspective that is not being represented here due to lack of data, yet equally as valid. Before proceeding, it is important to give definition to what is meant by the term inauthentic. One who has been subjected to various methods of induced trauma and then been programmed to define themselves by externally imposing standards and expectations, causing an addictive pathology that is burdened with the pursuit of eternal approval as a means of gaining validation of worthiness. Common behaviour of an inauthentic parent is to post happy snaps of their children on social media, creating the illusion of happiness as a means of concealing the unrelenting cycle of anguish and torment they act out in their children.
So I just wanted to stop it there if I can. You just think about how many parents go out of their way to present this perfect world on social media, right? Facebook, all other things. And their kids are, smiling and stuff. As soon as those cameras are off and they're not taking pictures, right, they're right back acting out their trauma. And that's prevalent. That's like most of us would know someone like that. And this is the fake system we've been living under, right? People are willing to stay in that fake life because they're too afraid to face themselves and what they've actually become. And that's the best we've got because we live in a system that will judge you, right? So in order to protect yourself from other people's judgments, what do? You do the pretense, right? So that's the sick society that we're living under. And we perpetuate when we are unwilling to actually hear people for their pain, when we're more willing to just judge and criticize. And that's a program state. And so I just wanted to lay that one down there as well.
If you wish to gauge the sickness and depravity or immorality to which society has been reduced, then you need look no further than the Family Violence Act of 2008. This devious and conniving piece of legislation actively encourages and enables traumatized women to become adversaries to the quality of life on this planet by being willful participants in the destruction of the familial bonds between men and women inherent in nature. This act, an expression of moral relativism, coincidentally the second tenet of Satanism, is the poisoned chalice that funnels paranoia and anxiety of inauthentic women into betraying the fathers of their children as a tactic to rip apart the very fabric that unifies and harmonizes the natural bond between men and women inherent in the laws of existence, to alter the energy upon which propagation of the species is initiated, switching from its natural harmonious state to a state of tension and dis-ease.
So just we'll pause it there if we can, Carl. So you think about how many men actually, if they're really honest, they don't have that real desire to want to have children, right? They just do it because the female wants to. Well, if you're in that state, that means you're not in a connected state. You are not unified and harmonized with your partner, right? You're just doing it out of obligation and duty. That's what you're supposed to do. And so then how life is created doesn't come from our true energy of the male's desire to want to actually bring life to this planet with someone that he truly deeply connects with. That's a very rare experience. And so if you think about, I think it was Bosie was talking about the book about the ring cedars. Well, from what I've heard about in that book, that gets articulated in there. So there's sort of things that are really worth finding out about the true nature of how our life, if we're to have a quality of life, what that energy needs to be from the beginning. And we've lived such traumatized lives that we cannot connect with each other in the deepest way we're capable of. And that's a deliberate, systemized approach to make sure, because if we start off traumatized, right, and that's in our genetic DNA because of the previous trauma that our parents had and their parents had, if you would ask them, they would have been very similar, right? So we're starting off already behind the 8 ball. And so this is how well these people know how, if we're going to be controlled, we've got to start it before we're even born.
The policy of the criminal syndicate's enforcement arm, the police, is to actively conspire with the inauthentic woman to grant her carte blanche to either fabricate any felonious story she likes without requiring a shred of evidence to substantiate the claim, or use everyday situations where there is tension and disagreement to automatically elevate her opinion that she is in fear to a statement of fact, especially when the potential to destroy familial bonds is high, increasing the likelihood of bitter court battles that will net a solid harvest of sweat equity.
So what that means is that if you think about what when I said inauthentic, it doesn't matter if it's inauthentic male or inauthentic female, it doesn't matter. But that means that someone who places their fears and their anxieties as the highest priority, and they must be satisfied, right? Doesn't matter what the cost, what action has to happen, it must be satisfied. So they don't care about what consequences others have to undergo, just as long as they don't feel unsafe, so to speak. So this system actually creates the door for that to happen because they have their trigger words, right? And those trigger words is I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling afraid, or I'm feeling bullied. They have these sort of trigger words. I'm feeling harassed, And so these women, they learn it, right? Because they've got their programmed agents who will teach these women what the right things to say if they want to entrap the man. Now, there was a situation I heard of just recently where there was a guy who got together with a female. They had a child. It didn't work out. She was obviously, fit that description of what I've been displaying here. Turned out that he found out through all her friends that all she ever wanted was a sperm donor. And once she got that, that was all she needed. Anyway, she took the child away without him knowing. And all he did is send her a text saying, okay, if you're going to do that, well, I guess I'll see you in court. Straight away, intervention order. So this is how easily it happens, right? Like, how is that violence? Just because you want to challenge on, but that's how it's taken, right? And that's a woman's opinion, right? Gets taken as a statement of fact. Now you think about the sick depravity that's been unleashed. Who would be attracted to that kind of way of going about life, allowing their opinion to be taken as a truth? Who would actually be attracted to that? That's not a moral individual, because where's the whole thing about innocent before proven guilty? Where's that come from, right?
Yep.
Is that just out the window now? Because they themselves would never accept that. So how is it that you would want others to suffer that which you would never accept? That's the thing here. So only a certain type of pathology would actually believe that's a justified thing to do.
Yep, you're right. Moving on.
So that's why I've put this one in here about opinion.
Opinion is really the lowest form of human knowledge. It requires no accountability, no understanding. The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world. This repugnant act of contempt for humanity.
Sorry, Carl, I just wanted to jump on that one for a sec. This is what most people don't understand about empathy. They think empathy is something you can have an intellectual experience of, but they don't truly understand it. It's about suspending your capacity and what you believe and your opinions and actually climbing into the skin of the other as if you are them and putting all your focused attention on what their experience must be like as they have it, not as you have it. So you are throwing away all your assessments, judgments, all those things. It's like you've met them for the first time. You have no history. You've divorced yourself from any kind of history you have with them. And it's like you've met them like a newborn for the first time and you will never meet them again. It's grabbing that instantaneous moment. And very few people have that. They have that capacity to access that. If you've never heard this before, this is probably just going to sound like gobbledygook. There's only a small number of people who's probably going to understand what I've just said here. But what we're really trained at doing is using our opinions as absolute truths. And if you're traumatized, that's what you do. And they know that. The Dark Priest class knows that, and they take full advantage of that.
Yeah. This repugnant act of contempt for humanity grants license to the Policy Enforcement Syndicate to use their discretion as to whether they prosecute or reject the fabrication. Unless the fabrication is launched at one of their own or someone of influence, the criminal syndicate's private militia is more than willing to stomp all over the universal principles of morality in favour of invading an innocent man's kingdom to abduct him from his home while terrorising the children who cower paralysed in fear as they're forced to endure the distress of powerlessness born out of the shock of having the security of their home suddenly invaded by merciless armed bandits extracting their primary biological protector with violent force.
So you've got to think about that, right? Just think about who would actually raid another man's home without any evidence and just carry out those orders. Who would do that? What kind of pathology would do that, right? And there's plenty of them. Every single one that wears that satanic badge on their shoulder. They have no trouble just going against their own innate understanding of they themselves would not welcome this kind of behavior if it was to happen to them. Yet they are more than willing to do that to others, right? So basic principle of morality is do unto others as you'd have yourself, right? Have done to you.
Yeah.
And they are more than willing to step over that and come and do that. And it doesn't matter how much pain and suffering, one endures, as long as they do what they're told, that's as long as they feel safe in their mind that nothing bad is going to happen to them, they will carry it out. So you got to think about the sickness that exists, in order for someone to actually do that, to invade and watch the trauma being induced into an innocent child, and they're participating in that, right? And how that from that day onwards, that will never leave that child. They will always have that. And every consequence that happens after that just builds and gets worse, they will never take responsibility for. That's why they can go and do it. That's how deeply immoral this entire society is. And these police are seen as something valuable. And it's like, it just boggles the mind as to how that can be missed. And if we don't start standing up and actually standing up for it and actually coming together, right, we're just condoning it. And this is what happens if we ignore morality. We are inducing trauma in innocent, vulnerable life.
Yeah, 100%. Hurt people hurt people. Like a moth to the flame, the honey trap that snares the traumatized woman to destroy the sanctity of her family unit is the abolishment of prosecution for perjury, codified assurance that actively rewards immoral tendencies. In some severe cases, the provision of being a victim of crime is set as bait to attract the other aspect of fear consciousness attached to deserve thinking, meaning a handsome payout to her, extracted from both her and her partner's CQV trusts, which is also divided amongst the magistrate, police prosecutor, and legal teams. In this instance, sentencing of the father is a foregone conclusion because the police prosecutor writes every single one of the alleged victim's statements, and all the alleged victim is required to do is to sign her name to the malicious musing of criminal minds. A more powerful application of codified law is a programming tool for mass acceptance of morality as a virtue. I challenge you to find.
So this is the really important thing, right? You got to think, when we have a system where the people who are responsible for bringing someone to trial actually get to run the prosecution, this is inevitable what's going to happen, right? This is how far we need to understand about how badly we've been programmed, right? We accept that the police are an actual valid system of prosecution, or that the Department of Prosecution is like a government-run structure. Like, you've got to really think about that, right? How is that justice? The government prosecutes you. Are they going to prosecute? Where do they get the authority to do that? They're just meant to be acting in service, not in domination of us. So it shows you that we've been dominated from day one. And so these are the things that if we don't start looking at properly, right, we're going to repeat the same problems. So we need to start uncovering where all the real deep, dark crevice, where all the deep, dark secrets are hidden in how our immorality is actually acted out. So if we don't understand that there's no such thing as a government-run public prosecutions office, that's not justice, that's dictatorship, that the police cannot run any kind of prosecution, because these people are deeply immoral. They will make up a story for the woman so she gets paid, but they get paid even more out of that CQB trust, right? And she just requires to hear that she's not going to have to work again. You know, there's a particular kind of woman who will be attracted to that, right? If she's attracted to actually lie and make stuff up just to get rid of the male, because, you know, she believes that he's her enemy now, then she's going to be really attracted to this kind of payout too, right? And so she's willing to just put her name on it and they'll just run it for her. So it's like, oh, I just got to put my name to it, without thinking about the consequences of what she's putting her life force energy into the opposite of what she herself would never, ever, ever accept if it happened to her. You know, these people don't do that kind of thinking, and only traumatized consciousness would ever, ever accept that. And instead of these people getting helped to actually understand that the way that they've been programmed is the cause of their suffering, they get taught that there's an enemy out there that they need to defend themselves from. If we lived in a system of natural justice, we'd have a total inversion. You know, we'd never seek to prosecute anyone if we saw that they're traumatized. We'd be trying to find ways by which they could heal, you know, and we'd be giving them empathy. You know, the true nature of healing comes from empathy. Very few people understand that. And we'd be educating each other about that. We'd be showing them in lived experiences of what it's like to get empathy. And that is healing for the soul, because empathy is about the truth that exists inside you, and someone else being able to see it and acknowledge it and recognize it and validate it for you. And so the video we're going to watch now is an explanation of deserve thinking. Deserve thinking is one of the best ways to program people into slavery. And very few people understand that. And you'll hear all the time, oh, he doesn't deserve it. Or, you know, you get what you deserve. That's a beautiful way to make sure violence exists on the planet. So we're just going to see a real quick video about how that happens.
As the Christian theologian Walter Wink said, we've been educated for many years, thousands of years, to make violence enjoyable. See, all you need to do to make violence enjoyable is think there's bad guys, and that these bad guys deserve to suffer for what they've done, and it can make it enjoyable for you to create pain for these people. So anger is a very valuable feeling. It tells us we are perpetuating the thinking that creates that kind of anger. So with this prisoner, I showed him that it's valuable then, when you are angry, to be conscious that you're angry because of your own thinking and not because of what the other person did. The other person's action is a stimulus for your anger, but not the cause. The cause is your thinking. Then I said to him, it's also very important, once you have identified the thinking that causes your anger, it's important to be conscious that that thinking is a tragic, suicidal expression of an unmet need. See?
Wow.
So this is really, really important stuff, guys. We're going into next level understanding here. So it's going to be a big leap for a lot of people. So I highly recommend you go back into the lessons because some of this stuff has been covered to some level. If this is all new to you, let's see, anger and guilt, shame, and anxiety all come from ideas that you have in your head. And very few people understand that. There's certain beliefs that we've been trained into believing exist as truths. And a really good way to look at it is, imagine that you were sitting down and somebody kicked you in the shins, right? And you're like, why did you do that? And you started getting angry. It's because, he had no right to do that. Now imagine the same thing, right? And you found out that they actually had a nervous disorder, that they actually don't have control over their body. Would you feel the same level of anger? That's just a quick way to understand it, right? It's not the event that makes you angry. It's what you've created around it, the story. Now, if these traumatized women were actually taught this stuff, right, they would never want to actually punish anyone. And I'm not talking about just women. It's anyone who's traumatized, right? But in this particular version, this is what we're talking about, how the traumatized women actually destroy their relationships because they believe, they have these ideas that there's a wrongness or a badness in their partner that they must get punished, so they start enjoying it, like it just got explained here. And so this is how we get programmed, guys. So all those people who've ever thought, oh yeah, I'm a freedom fighter, I don't mind looking at frazzle drip and all that kind of stuff. You'd rather watch that than really go and learn this depth of the level of your programming, right? Well, this is what's going to set you free, to really understand just how sweetly it's been done, how intricately it's been done. So everything's up for investigation here. That's what this is about, right? If we're going to understand true morality, we need to understand how we've been fooled and how we actually work against ourselves and how most of the time we're actually immoral without us realizing we're doing it. Because if it's do unto others as you'd have done to you, right? You would never accept someone else creating a story about anything you've done and then punishing you for it. So why would you do it to them? So this is the whole thing that needs to be understood here, right? And this is how they manipulate trauma. They get them to believe that their partner is evil, bad, or wrong and deserves to be punished. And then they enjoy their suffering. That's where it comes from.
All right. Get back in. Once extracted from his sanctum, the irreversible trauma that is unleashed in this moment doesn't stop there. From that point, the distressed and disorientated father, left to absorb the horror of being forced to witness his young left to the mercy of the bandits, remain only to be violated and humiliated at the syndicate's lock-up facility, then forced into a cold, dark cell if he doesn't sign his rights away. The lock-up period is a deliberate tactic to torment the soul into signing away the last of his freedom, as from the moment he places his signature down, he is displaced from his home and threatened with incarceration should he come within a 200-metre radius of the property he contributed his precious time, energy, and labour into securing for his family, or attempt to contact his children by any means whatsoever, nor be within the vicinity of any premises his children frequent. He is stripped of all... Oh, sorry?
I was just going to say, if you think about that, really sink into it, that's you experiencing that. You're sitting at home at peace. All of a sudden, these bandits come and rip you out. Your children are traumatized. You have to leave and watch them be guarded like foxes in front of a hen house by the foxes while you're being dragged out and you're powerless. Really sink into that, guys, right? Because that's what gets condoned here. And it all happens in the shadows and nobody sees it. But unless you've actually witnessed it yourself and felt it and gone through it, you'll never understand it, right? So here's your chance for empathy, right? Step into that space, quiet your mind, envision it, step into that experience. What's it feel like to be ripped out of your home? What's it feel like to see your child sitting there paralyzed, traumatized by what these bandits are doing to you, and you can't do a thing to stop it? Like, allow yourself to sink into that experience. Right? This is how, if you don't do this right, you will never find the motivation to stand up for morality.
He's stripped of all his inherent rights and property by way of being marked as a violent threat to his family without a shred of evidence required. Furthermore, he needs to endure the indignation of being tainted as a menace, losing his standing within his community by way of being sentenced with a corrections order, causing alarm and distress to not only him but also his children, as they need to swallow the devastation of having their primary caregivers turned against one another as mortal enemies.
So this is what they do, right? They turn people who otherwise would find a way to come and meet each other in the middle, if they had a correct support structure that could actually allow them to see what's alive in each other, that it's the same things, they have the same feelings, they have the same needs. They're not different, right? We don't have a support structure that does that. We have not even a support structure. We have a destructive structure that makes sure that at any given moment, we turn against one another. That's what they harvest. They need that. They need that energy of hate, maliciousness. They need that to exist. Otherwise, they could never get to their ends. And so if you have a look at Article 39 here, if we understand that, now I'm going to give you another perspective on it, right? So before, when I read it, it would be no free man shall be seized, right? Well, what's a free man? If you understand the link between freedom and morality, a free man is someone who lives under the principles of morality, universally, not their own version of it, but the universally discoverable principles. So it means a moral man shall not be seized. So we want to what? We want to preserve the freedom of anyone else who acts in the service of freedom. That's what that says. So we need to understand what's really here, guys. So this cannot happen. These things cannot happen to anyone who acts and lives morally, right? They cannot be stripped of their rights or possessions. Now, what that story is about is a total inversion of that, or outlawed or exiled, same thing, total inversion. Or deprived of their standing, again, total inversion. Nor will we proceed. We, government, right? So government will act morally. It will not proceed with force against any moral man, right? Or send others to do so. Total inversion. That 2008 Family Violence Act is an inversion of everything that's here, right? And it says, except by the lawful judgment of his equals. So what will the lawful judgment of his equals come from? It'll come from the universal principles of morality. So unless there's been a breach in morality, there'll be no harm come to anyone who lives within those confines. That's what that says, guys. Right? So that common law article isn't in any other structure. It's only in 1215 Magna Carta. So, people who are still struggling to understand how this has got anything to do with Magna Carta, I'm hoping this now helps you understand it, because morality covers every aspect of life, every aspect of decency, every aspect of integrity, every aspect of, freedom. It all comes down to morality. And if you support it, then you'll have it. But if you still believe you can use all these other codified laws that are very seductive and they give you the idea that you're going to get some kind of quick remedy, well, then you are actually acting in opposition to what you actually say you support. And then you are your own slave master and the slave master of your neighbor. This is what we all need to be able to take and absorb in ourselves and accept. And if we don't, we're going to still be the same problem towards each other. We can have a military come save us, but if we don't understand this, we're going to get right back to where we were before. And that's why this is really critical to understand this.
Yes, I think you're really putting a point on this tonight. You're quite right. The military can come in at any time and save us, but what are we going to do after that? And it's imperative that we start learning these sorts of things, opening our eyes up. Article 39 is one of the four main articles removed by the Catholic Pope, of course. So, and you can see here in stark outline as to why they specifically wanted it removed. So, can't do what they want to do if they've got Article 39 in there. Traumatized by the.
I was just going to say, well, you can't live immorally if people understand what morality is. So they have to not understand it. Otherwise, they wouldn't get away with it.
And then if the people become moral or learn morality, how do they hold the immoral police and justice and politicians to account.
Oh, that will
Try
happen
to-
just naturally. That will just
Yeah.
happen naturally. I'm willing to
Yeah.
bet anything you like on it. It would just happen really, really naturally, because we'd understand about trial by jury, right? Everyone comes in and they come before the people, right?
Yep.
And then we got a case evidence, like the notices are case evidence that we do. That's why we do them. We don't do them for a win. We never do the notices for a win. We do it for morality, right? Because we're standing up for principles of morality. And that's our case evidence file, of the proof that they swore an oath to protect the principles of morality. That's what those oaths are. Oaths of offices are them swearing, and they've gone against it. So there's a consequence for that, And if you don't actually show that you're serious about upholding those consequences, well, you've basically said that we don't really care about morality. So, it'll just happen naturally. So this is what the whole point of 1215 Magna Carta is there's only one contract that exists that holds government accountable to remaining moral. No other contract does. It's right there in Article 39. You just have to know how to understand it. So this is giving you guys a deep understanding as to what that's truly saying there. So you need to be able to read past just the words you see and be able to connect them to something deeper. Sorry, Carl, you can carry on now if you like.
Traumatized by the extent of the violation that has just occurred, he is expected to carry on without his heart filling with bitterness, resentment, animosity, and rage, because to display the natural consequences of extreme violation to the mind, body, and soul would only escalate his suffering. He's made to choose from two versions of enslavement: either be without his young or accept the intrusive dictates of corporate agencies abundant with militant females boosted with self-righteous impunity masquerading as child protection services. His young are held to ransom until he agrees to mental assessments, behavioural programming, implied access to his dwelling, and a rigorous schedule of intrusions to his young.
So they make they make it virtually impossible for you to have any level of freedom. As soon as they get involved, good luck trying to have any control over your life. So they're basically making sure that you're going to be a very good slave if you want to see your children. That's what they're set as the conditions.
The father whose moral compass will not accept enslaving his young is now left in isolation to endure every day without knowing the touch of his child's hand, and go without the strong, tender embrace he is biologically endowed to provide in order for his young to have an embodied experience of their biological guardian's loving protection, a critical aspect of meeting both his and their needs for secure attachment that sustains long-term healthy growth and development.
So you see what's happening here, right? They're breaking apart the very fabric that's required to have stable, confident, loving, empathic adults. That's why they don't exist in our society, because they've been ripping us apart from day one, right? Because they get into you from the day you're born with all these ideas of how to see the world as you are trained to see it. When you hear the word educated, that actually means programmed. So anytime you hear the word educated, it's the same as being programmed. And so this is how they do it. It's so subtly done that most people would never see it. Most people believe they're actually in charge of their own decisions. They think that actually their own thoughts are theirs, but they ain't. And, just giving you more and more ways is how it's done, guys.
He agonizes and pines over the loss of every moment stolen from him and his young, as they're made equally powerless, left to languish in the excruciating pain that comes with being forced into the torment of separation that is felt in every fibre of their being. The authentic father and his young must missed out on every bedtime story and goodnight kiss, the eternal loss of participating in skills development and activating his inner child in order to enjoy authentic play together, engaging with his child's curiosity, partnering in wonder and needs for exploration, extending family gatherings, celebrations, and being present for milestone events and critical stages of development, tending to his children when they're unwell, experiencing the charge that comes from blissful moments together and the warmth he feels from seeing their radiating smiles, hearing the sweetness of their laughter, and soothing them when they're hurt, along with knowing the joys of learning how to read his child's unique cues in order to activate his intuitive capacity for restorative justice, culminating in repairing the missed stages of development of his rearing. He is left to bear the anguish of knowing that there is no apology that can ever return the hands of time to replace nor repair the depth of damage unleashed.
So this is the part that doesn't get represented when people think about, oh yeah, they're separating the children from the parents. No one really looks at the real deep losses that are happening here on an intimate level. And so I needed to give, for me anyway, some real expression to that, so because people just brush over it, they just go get over it. That's the kind of mentality we live with, it happens. So it just happens to all of us. Why are you so special? Well, this is the real in-depth stuff that's missing out, right? When you have a child, that's another opportunity to heal your own wounds, right? So you can, and if you want to play with your child authentically, you need to access your own inner child to play with them authentically. Now, how many of us actually tap into our own inner child? Right? We just shut that off. This is the gifts that the children give us, right? And we have this opportunity to live that full life with them, to really get into that exploration of who they are in their unique ways. Well, these are all the things that get stripped away from you. You don't get a choice, right? And so if you are condoning this, right, that means there's some part of your own trauma that you haven't healed from if you're not actually tapping into this and not feeling this pain. The only way you can deny this is if you've denied it in yourself. Now, I've covered that when we did sports about when you deny your own needs. Here's another way it happens, right? This just shows you there isn't an individual alive who isn't traumatized to some level, especially the ones who can't tap into the pain that's been expressed here, because that's saying that they themselves have actually denied their own pain. And that's the way that's the way it works, guys, is if you deny your own pain, you'll deny it in others.
The traumatized mother operating from dense fear consciousness willingly accepts all intrusions by the state, as to her, the state is her benevolent protector, as her programming since early development dictates. Agents of the state waste no time in injecting her heart with bitterness and hate towards the father in order to escalate her paranoia to the level needed to gain permission for her and her young to be under the full control of mind-programmed corporate agents wearing the standard issue 6-color rainbow lanyard.
So I've just written out what those colors means if anyone's interested. So as you can see, red. Can you see what it says about red?
Yep, red equals sodomy. Orange, unnatural desire. Yellow, early sexualization of children. Green, rejection of the creative plan. Blue, body mutilation. And purple, destruction of the traditional family.
Now, one just has to look at what's been happening in the schools these days, right? What they're teaching the kids. I mean, it's right there in your face. And all these government departments, you see how they wear those lanyards. It's the same color, and they don't even know what the hell they're wearing it for. They really don't. That's just how badly programmed these guys are, And so if we go back to what it said before, these agents of the state, right? They're like Agent Smith. They're a dime a dozen. Doesn't matter how many you get through. There's another one who's willing to do the same, and they're just so full of self-righteousness, right? And that's one of the most dangerous energies you can come from. They're fully like psychopaths. You cannot get through to them. They've just cut off from any kind of real emotion where they can tap into the pain that they're actually instigating in when they're ignoring your pain. Just like a lawyer who is trying to, broker a deal with a family court system, and they go, oh yeah, I know, I reckon it really hurts, but here you go, sign it anyway, right? That's the same kind of energy there, where people are willing to deny that which they themselves would never accept. And as long as they get paid, that's all they care about, right? As long as they believe they're safe. So that's who these people are, who are supposed to be, in protection of children. They actually don't actually take one moment to really care about the true nature of the suffering that child goes through when they implement their private corporate policies, and you'll never hear them admit that they're actually a corporation, even though they know it. And so that's the other part, right? How many people have ever asked them, okay, are you a system of service? How many people actually ask them when they deal with these child protection agencies? They don't. They never ask them, what's a public servant? Explain what one is. They don't ask that, right? And this is because they're not, and they know they're not. And so if we don't actually start doing these kind of questioning, right, and actually asking them, getting them to prove what a public servant is, what do they need to take an oath for? What's that oath really represent? They wouldn't even know how to define morality. I'm willing to bet they would have no idea how to define it, right? So that's because if they could, they'd never be doing what they're doing. Carl, just quickly, you've got a sex bot in your chat, my friend.
Oh, do I? Not looking at the chat, so hang on. Let me see what I can do there. we can use that button. Oh,
There's a
I've
few
got a few
more.
of them. Beg your pardon. Sorry, folks. See what we can find.
There's a little one more left, and then I reckon you got it.
Close.
There you go. Yep, I think you've done it.
Roger that. Let's roll on. The authentic father is left to hold the extreme levels of anxiety that come from the awareness that without his protection, his children's private suffering grows deeper by the day, and the likely possibility that over time, intrusions by the state upon his family will become more prevalent and untenable, until the inauthentic mother is eventually deemed unfit to take care of her young. And because he, as their biological protector, has been neutralized, the door is wide open for the state to appropriate his young for harvest. In cases where the sentencing is for incarceration, the trigger for looting his CQV trust, the father is forced into confinement and only let out to participate in acts of depravity and slave labour, making products for corporations that sell to the public, while enduring all of the above. In some cases, the devastation goes beyond what is mortally possible to endure until his will is broken. Desperate to end the severity of the depravity and misery he endures, his only way out is to extinguish his biological flame by any means at his disposal, which commonly ends up being quite horrific. An extra level of responsibility.
Hold it, Carl. Can you just hold it for a sec? This is one I really want to sit with, right? This is really important. You think about what that's like, right? Everything that you've ever loved, treasured, what's precious to you has been taken from you, and you know it's being used and harvested while you sit in some kind of lockup facility being made to be a slave. You think about what that would be like to hold and bear that. Allow yourself to sink into that moment, right? Because without the father, the biological protector, what they can offer, right? There is no sacred space for that family to be. That's why they run this system. Right. And then you imagine, that you are forced out of your own biological needs for being a protector, and knowing that the love of your labor is now being utilized and appropriated for something so wicked that you could not handle holding that anymore. Right. While you're incarcerated like an animal, you're just confined. Right. That's it. The human spirit cannot bear that kind of treatment. We are not for that treatment. That's not why we ascended here, or descended, whichever way you want to look at it, right? And this goes against every fiber of our intelligence. And to do that to another living being, what kind of sick society would do that? This is what it's time to sit down with, guys. You stop ignoring what's there. You really need to start being fully attentive and alert and awake to this. Allow yourself to feel it like it's you living it. Picture it. What does it feel like in your body to be confined like that? To have anything that's so precious and dear taken, stripped away from you. You have no control over it. These malicious energies are surrounding themselves like a pack of wolves, salivating, ready to pounce. That's what you're left to hold, and then in the end, it's too much and you just have to leave. That's what you need to sit with if you're going to be honest with yourself.
All right. An extra level of responsibility falls on every individual consciously aware of the sickness and depravity that plagues every institution set up to enslave man, to cease being a bystander and or pouring life force energy into supporting codified law, i.e. FMOTL, techniques that mix using equity law, UCC, fake Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia 1901, and the illegal system, to carry on doing so inadvertently consents and condones to the policy enforcement syndicates overt contempt and disdain for the sacred familial bonds between men and women and the precious vulnerable life born out of their union. There is only one contract that binds agents and officers of the government to behave within the universal principles of morality, and that is Magna Carta 1215. Sealed in perpetuity, it is in effect to this day across all nations of the English Commonwealth realm of which Australia is part. To sit on the sidelines as a bystander or utilize codified law is to refuse the sole contract that holds agents and officers of the Crown accountable for their violations and transgressions, and the source of the misery and suffering on this planet. No matter how many intellectual arguments are put forward, there is only one truth, and one contract that grants legitimacy to government, and to refute the peaceful lawful remedy contained within the only contract that restores the universal principles of morality, is to act in opposition to the laws your very existence is dependent upon. Where do you wish to spend your valuable life force energy? Misery, chaos, and violence, or freedom, peace, and prosperity?
So basically, that's the question we all need to ask ourselves, right? And if you really want to be honest, you really need to start thinking about what your energy is supporting. Every time you reach for comfort, oh, it's all too hard. No, I don't want to make anything tough for myself. What are you standing up for when you do that? This is the question. We all have that responsibility, whether we like it or not. No one asked us to be born. We all say that. Guess what? We're here now. And now it just comes pre-stamped with the responsibility. So, everyone that I'm watching the chat has got their own little opinions going and stuff, but you don't get to hide from that just because you don't find it comfortable, right? At some point, you're going to need to square up with it and look at yourself in the face and actually go, yeah, what do I support? And what am I willing to do about it? And no one else can make that decision for you. Only you can. But you are responsible for the choice you make and how it affects not only you, but others. And so you got to think about what you want to carry through you into your eternal life. What karma you want to carry into your next lives, all right? Because that'll come with you, and that's how you leave here is how you start your next one. So if you want to leave dense, yeah, ignore it, absolutely. If you want to leave enlightened, so you can come and start enlightened, then there's only one choice to make, and it's up to you.
The call to unity. There is no costume of presumed authority, no army of lethal weapon-carrying order followers, no mortal force that can extinguish the source of strength and courage that calls the indomitable spirit to defend that which is most precious and sacred in order to overcome and reunite. For this force is eternal and inevitable. Beyond the adversarial weapons of guilt, sin, and shame, calling on the carnal instincts of man to hate and condemn into self-inflicted separation, there is a field for our divine flames to unite in the grace of our oneness. I'll meet you there.
And then there's just Article 61 of Magna Carta 1215 is the blueprint to restore dignity and freedom for all. So it's all linked, right? That statement is talking about having a way to actually see our oneness. And if we're stuck in our thoughts and our ideas and beliefs, we're never going to see our oneness, right? The only way we see our oneness is through empathy, is to climb into the skin of the other, see the needs they're expressing, even if they're doing it in a vulgar way, right? And that takes training, but it takes dedication and will and care. So if you have the will, care, you will find a way. And there are ways to access that. And just at the bottom there, it says, about Magna Carta being the moral code, right? That binds government. Right. So if you don't use morality, right, then you're fighting fire with fire. How do you put out a fire with a fire? It's not possible. So you need to use morality. If you don't use it, then you're giving to immorality. There's no third option there. And this is what needs to be understood. So this is a graphic we put together that we're putting up in the group later that people can share in their network. So we've done a lot of work on that kind of stuff. We've made a lot of graphics they're like public awareness campaigns, guys. So later we'll be showing you the actual group, what it looks like, if you want to join and if you want to be part of the solution and use morality and share that and start triggering that into your people that you connect with and start getting that into their consciousness. This is how you can start using your power. So we've got a few more announcements to do.
Do we have one?
Oh, one more video. Yep, one more video online. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to intro this?
So basically, same thing. John just talks about, how the whole system of morality really works in a trial by jury structure where we are actually being compassionate towards each other. Obviously, those who are meant to act in service of the people, they have a separate set of rules that they are bound by because they take an oath. But when we're just dealing with one another, we're actually looking in ways to restore the dignity and honor in each other. So even when there's been a transgression, he really explains it really well, guys. So, this is our true divine nature on display if we understand it. And trial by jury is how we're going to learn and expand our morality. So this is a beautiful explanation. So just want to give kudos to John and also his producer as well. They do a brilliant job. So yeah, away we go.
When those universally known laws are broken or breached, the common law system stands ready to preserve or restore the right by means of trial by jury and annulment by jury of unjust legislation, which does not treat everyone equally or preserve their natural born rather than their artificially granted rights. Such concepts formed the basis for the devising and sealing of the Magna Carta in 1215. King John and all subsequent monarchs were placed under the obligation of obeying the common law along with all other people. Sadly, like King John, we're all afflicted with personal foibles and weaknesses, and occasionally give offence to our fellows, even though these offences may be the result of accident or thoughtlessness rather than intent. Though thankfully for the community, few exercise these personal flaws with the intensity displayed by John. However, when such things happen, it is only right that some attempt to rectify those wrongs is undertaken. And this brings into play another concept, without which it is extremely difficult, even impossible, to construct or maintain a harmonious, peaceful community. I refer, of course, to the principles of forgiveness, reconciliation, or atonement. Atonement is an interesting word. Broken into its 3 syllables, it reads as at one-ment, a subtle difference from the more widely considered application of punishment for some wrong. Article 61 provides not just an opportunity to punish the monarch for treason, but also proffers a time frame for redressing of the issues. It also specifically states that when the treason is redressed, the people shall resume their former relations with us. Were this provision not present, what would be the point of requiring the monarch to repent of their errors? Indeed, why would anyone rectify any errors if the situation of estrangement were to remain in perpetuity? This is perhaps the most vital component of common law, that people, when once having had their errors explained, be entitled to expect reconciliation and atonement if they mend their ways. In some cases, not referring to Article 61 here, where definite changes in action must occur, an apology may be all that is necessary if malicious intent and a definable harm has not occurred, and it is only our emotions or pride that have been disturbed. Thus, like all good and sound principles, these aspects of the common law apply in both the material and the spiritual realms of human interaction. All truth is indeed part of one great whole. Another word mentioned is forgiveness. Again, an interesting one. Its literal meaning is to give something before the event. In this case, credit to those who have offended us that they will honour their commitment to refrain from doing so again, at least in the selfsame manner. When we forgive, as in the case of a judgment in a common law trial by jury, we accept the principle that the offender is making whatever recompense they can, and we agree to re-include them in the community on the former basis, as if they had not offended in the first place. We do this because we know that one day it could be us that makes a mistake, and we hope that we would be accorded the same courtesy and grace if repentant. Without this principle, community and indeed family life would be one unending round of recrimination and resentment. Common law exists to restore the harmony that normally applies in the most practical way, given that human beings will always make mistakes and commit occasional offences. By espousing and committing to Article 61, we work towards restoring common and natural law, which is the gentlest and or least tyrannical form of law, and encouraging people to treat each other with compassion, cooperation, and love. To be consistent, these qualities need to be applied in all aspects of our lives.
Okay.
So why I put that in there is now I want people, what I love people to do is actually do a mental exercise and imagine that there's a disagreement between a husband and a wife or a partnership of some, whether it's same sex, doesn't really matter. And if we had this system running the way John explained it, would there be people getting incarcerated, accused of things, having things stripped off them, or would there be actually the opportunity for healing? That's what we're fighting for here, right? And if you cannot see what's really on the table here, what's really worth fighting for, right? If you're not understanding morality yet, I'm not sure how else I could better explain it. This is one of the best ways to really understand what we're in defense of. We're in defense of healing one another, right? We've all been traumatized, and there's no other way to help heal each other than to accept each other as we are now, and then look to how we can support one another to get better, to understand that we ourselves cannot be perfect. So why would we judge someone else for being imperfect? And then what supports? So would a jury possibly be, thinking, okay, so this is really just about people showing their hurt. There's been no real malicious intent to harm anyone. So what supports can we actually offer, to help them really see each other for the true pain that's in them so they can help heal each other? Imagine if that's what, the outcome of going to an actual trial by jury was, that it would actually go past into those realms where we're really into that deep spiritual understanding that there's only oneness. That's why that graphic was up there about the divine unity and that grace of our oneness, what it's like where there's no division. We just see the oneness of all of us. We're created from that same life force energy, and we are finding a way to see each other there where there's no controversy. Imagine if that was what we could achieve out of these trials, right? How many people have looked at it like that? So this is about opening your consciousness, right, beyond the limits that it's set into right now. So when you come into these lessons, right, it's not just about concrete, hard facts. It's about you also using your imagination to see what you are intuitively capable of if you're willing to look deeper.
Awesome. All right, Fitz, we've got some announcements. Let me get to the right page.
Just wanted to, I think we're going to do the police one this time. Is that what's next?
This one. That one.
Nope. That's not
close.
it. So it should be the...
that one.
Yeah, that's one of them. So this is what Hayden, you spoke about Hayden last week?
Yes.
He's putting together I guess it's like a flow chart of if you were ever stopped by the police or if they came to your property, of how you go about it. Like the video we showed a few weeks ago, something very similar like that, but it's just for your reference. And on the back of it, he's actually going to put like a cheat sheet for legalese words to understand what they are. So it's going to be quite detailed. So people actually have a real quality of understanding of why they're doing what they're doing.
I was going to say your graphic skills have gone through the roof in the last
week. I know. I'm never going to claim that's me. But look how well he's done it, right? He's got it framed like it's coming from an actual phone, it's got a frame around it. So
yeah, it's done well.
That kind of visual stuff does sort of help people. But there's also a script that I've put together. Last week we did one for calling up the judiciary. Now I've made one for what you'd say if you're calling out the police to gather evidence that they're not a public service. So hopefully you've got that one in your repertoire there.
That one?
Yeah, so this one's about social proof, but using it on the police. Saying this, I think there's 11 questions. They're just framed a little bit differently, right? So this is a call out to the Galactic Larrikins. I'm still waiting for your version of this, guys. I know you're on the channel.
They're busy.
I still haven't heard you make a call. It's a 5-minute call, because you won't even last that long. But we need people to start actually adding to the channel and getting that evidence so we can see the denseness. So far, there's only one individual that's done it, and what came back out of that was quite revealing. So the more people that do this, right, the more clear it's going to show just how dense these people are, and they're totally clueless. And if you are totally self-unaware, you are dangerous. So we've got these people that they present as if they're knowledgeable, but they are totally dense. They have no clear understanding of morality, not even close. They sound intellectual, the whole thing, but they're totally void of morality. And we need to start collecting more and more evidence of their immorality, right? To show those who are asleep just how deeply dense these people are, how far removed. And they are given positions of what? Of some kind of authority to make decisions over our lives. So this is how we start doing it, guys. So now we've got two scripts, right? One for the police, one for the fake courts. So if we don't start rallying around this, guys, we're not going to collect the evidence. We're not going to be able to help others wake up, right? You'll hear people like Bosie saying, you know, you've all got your role to play, how to help people wake up. Well, here's a real practical, you know, real easy. Don't have to leave your house. Do you know what I mean? Just hit the record button and add to the tally, guys. You know, I've given the link to the social proof channel in the private chat, Carl. So if you want to go in there and grab that and send that link in to the comment section, people can click on that and you can get in the social. But please come into it with the intention to download these and actually keep them and then actually ring up and use them, because we do need people who have the courage, you know, to actually action. So then you can be part of the solution. Right? This is where you can put your life force energy into that which you seek. And that is to waking others up through proof, not just your words, but proof, right? You're grabbing that proof. That's what people need, and they need it repeated. So the more people that do it, the easier it's going to be there for them to understand, because it just won't be once. Right? People need to hear it over and over and over again. So you are now bringing a whole data. You're collecting the data. You are part of that data collection team, guys. You know, that's what you're doing when you join here. Yeah. And so please, if you are going to join in, go with the intention to actually action it, guys. It's really important. And the other thing is, if you are going to put it into the group, please label the court name at least, so we know who's doing what. So we know what the file is about. So that's another one that's going to be up in the group soon. So yeah, just thought I'd put that up. And like I said, I'd be lucky if you got past question 5. Really lucky.
Yeah. I was just scrolling down and having a bit of a look at them. I'd be amazed if anybody gets past 5. Absolutely. It should be fairly interesting, like you say, proof of concept. And make sure you record it, folks. We might even see if we can't get a few of those to play back here one night and give folks an idea of just how easy it is. In fact, I can probably do that myself when I get home.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. With your dulcet tones, it would be even better. But yeah, like, definitely love to play it on the show. So look at it this way, guys. You get a little bit of airplay if you put some effort in. We'll be able to have your version played on the show. So it'd be wonderful. Love to do that. And I think there's just the graphic for the group, the network chat. Well, it used to be network chat. Now it's called Knowledge Center. So yeah, people, if you want to join the group, we've got the files that we've created for the lawful notice process. They're just templates, really easy, super easy to initiate. There's, we've got like infographics to show you which files. There's like a file index. It's very well organized, guys. There's been a recent upload, so all freshly redone, revamped. New knowledge, new files been added to add more like arsenal into your chamber, so to speak. So then you've got more things to do when you're getting pushback from the criminal structure. So you've got more ways to do it. Now I'm getting feedback from people that I've helped saying that they haven't heard anything back from council for a while. When they were getting, insistence on paying, and then we used the one that had morality in it, right? They weren't hearing anything after that. So, I'm getting some positive feedback from people that the people have backed off. Okay, so we are developing our knowledge, we're expanding it, always improving it, and then we just add it into the group, right? So if you want to actually join in and stand up for morality, there is an organized way to do it that is verifiable and can't be denied. And this is what will add as evidence to all those people who are meant to be public servants of all the criminal crimes that they've been committing. And this is how we collect it. So it's all there for you guys if you want to join the group. Just wanted to also make a mention of something you and I spoke about earlier, that I think it was 27 was the number. So lesson 27 is what we've sort of put aside for being a Q&A with me. So you can either start emailing in to Carl or myself. So I'm Fitz at VoFHQ.com. Obviously, Carl at VoFHQ.com.
VoFHQ.com. Good try.
You'll just put me as the URL.
Yeah.
And you can send in any question that you have had on your mind that's been hot for you, or you can voice record it. I mean, that was one of Carl's ideas. Voice record it. We'll play your question live. But yeah, so lesson number 27 is that'll be in the new year. We're looking to actually have a Q&A with me. And so all the questions that you've not had answered, because I don't get to answer, everyone's in the chat here. Here's your opportunity. You've got about 3 weeks to start coming up with it. And so you can get satisfaction. Anyone who, has issues with anything I've said, fire away the questions. I have no fear of any questions you want to ask. So
we're planning that for the 2nd of January from memory?
I think it's the 9th. It'll be the 9th.
Oh, the 9th.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon.
Because we'll probably take a breather on the 26th, being it's Boxing Day. And so that'll be the 9th that'll be for. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, the public awareness campaigns that we've got in the group. So we've done one on tax. We've done one on the whole cost of living that you can send out. That you just have to basically just send it. It's just in the group for you to send. We've done one on the courts. We've also done one on the child, those payments that you've got to do, and I can't think what they're called right now. When you've got to pay for your child and you're forced and you don't get to see your child, but you still have to pay for them. We've done one on that. We've done one on Magna Carta. We've done one on freedom fighters. Now you saw that one today about a call to action for unity. We've got that one now sorted out. So, we're really building a repertoire here, guys. If you do join the group, there's quite a rich number of options. It's very organized and structured, and we are very specific and tailored to just the solution, right? So it's only about supporting morality and what's required to do it. That's what the group's for. So it takes discipline to do that. And if you're sovereign, you understand what self-discipline is, and you action, your intention. And that group is there to support you. So if that's what you've got that courage to come and do, then join the group and you'll have all the support you require. So just wanted to also mention that if you are watching this, it's really important to go back over the lessons and start again and pick and work your way through. There is a lot of content, but it's totally worth it. The people who get in touch with me and tell me they've gone back over it, they're the ones who really, really flourish, right? Because sometimes they've got to listen to it 3 times, and then the penny starts to drop. Yeah, thank you, Elaine. Child support. That's what I was trying to say. So this is about showing that you really care. It matters because it's going to feed your soul, guys. If you really understand it, your soul will liberate. That's what the whole purpose of all this knowledge is about. Because truth is the only way to heal the soul. There's no other way. And that's why I do what I do.
Excellent stuff, mate. Well, looking forward to doing it all again with you again next week.
Yes. So thanks everyone who joined tonight. Like I said, if this is a lot of information, please go back over and watch it. It might take 2 or 3 times because there is a lot of heavy stuff in here. It does take a lot of inner deep reflection of the ways that we overlook our morality in preference for comfort. And it's about taking the courage to actually own up to that, because if you don't, then you will never do anything different. So it's about also having some compassion for yourself as well as to why you would choose comfort over morality. All righty. So this is about, understanding. We are not judging each other. We're actually open to, expanding our consciousness through being compassionate with ourselves. And if we can do that, then we can offer it to others. So this is like a way to actually heal ourselves too. That's what's on offer here.
Absolutely. All right, my friend, you have a good week.
Likewise. Thank you again, Carl. Appreciate all the effort you put in, and hopefully see everyone next week.
Look forward to it, buddy. All good. And thank you to you folks for joining us for another Magna Carta Learning Centre lesson. As Fitz said, we will do a Q&A on the 9th of January. So if you do have some questions for Fitz about Magna Carta, maybe you do have a disagreeing point, we'd love to hear it. Just write it down, and as Fitz said, you can either send it to me, you can send it to him, Fitz at VoFHQ.com, or me, Carl at VoFHQ.com. If you have the opportunity to record your question and send that to us, we'd love to hear you as well. And we'll play you asking your question and try and give our voices a little bit of a rest for a while. Look forward to having you as part of that, folks. We're very excited about that coming up on the 9th of January, Q&A with Fitz. Also, some great stuff happening this week in my part of the world, and my part of the world at the moment is actually Cherie's part of the world. So I'm floating around Newcastle, Sydney and Singleton for the next few days and picking up a bit of stuff, going to see a few people, I think I'm going to go to the Cali Wednesday night and have a beer, maybe even have dinner, try and catch up with Brad. We'll do a show from there and see what's going on in the Cali, see whether the council have backed down there on their demands to remove the red ensign off the roof of the pub. I haven't heard too much more from Brad about that. And recently, of course, they had the big Cali ball, so I guess we'll get a bit of a catch-up about that too. So that's coming up to Wednesday night. Tomorrow night, Darren Bergworth is coming back on. God, I've got to tell you, folks, My Place is taking off all over Australia. If you haven't got a My Place in your place yet, then you better be listening tomorrow night. Darren Bergworth is going to tell you exactly how, where, when, and the ins and outs of getting a My Place at your place. And, of course, we're planning on hitting the road next year and coming to your place with My Place. So if you would like to learn more about that, tomorrow night, 7:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, we'll get Darren Bergworth happening. Have yourselves a great night, folks. Thanks again for all your support. You can go and check us out at vofhq.com. Thank you to Sunflower and anybody else who threw a few bucks in tonight in the super chats. I appreciate that immensely. Any donations, if you want to make them, can be done at the website at vofhq.com. And look forward to talking to you tomorrow, folks. Going to have some interesting things then, too, I can tell you.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!